Whenever a Destiny player hears the word sunsetting, they feel a bit of disgust. It is an infamous thing among Crayon Muncher, Grasshopper, and dress wearers all alike. There's been a fuss recently with Bungie and the Edge of Fate. As more details regarding the tier system and weapons come to light, people are not liking the prospects of another Destiny expansion making vaults full of gear suddenly become useless. Personally, I think the new tier system may actually be worse than the original sunsetting for the long run. When I explain the details how, you'll understand my reasoning, but to also put things in perspective, let's talk about how many times in Destiny's history there has been some sort of lockout or sunsetting of weapons and gear. Vanilla D1 was a different time. There was many different legendaries that only dropped during this time, but legendaries on their own were exceedingly rare before we even talk about exotics. There was many cases where a legendary engram would suddenly become ascended energies or ascended shards, or even they would downgrade into lower quality items. So legendaries weren't as common back then, but before too long you actually managed to get some. Weapons like the 77 Wizard Legendary Fusion Rifle and others that had a white and orange with black striped skin existed, and that seemed to be some of the most common that you would find out in the wild. You'd find vendors with unique loot like faction reps, Shax, and Arcite selling Crucible red and blues, and the Vanguard giving some mix of blue, orange, and white paint job weapons. But as this went on, before too long, things changed. As Dark Below and House of Wolves came around, there was an across-the-board refresh with each DLC release. A lot of the world-dropped legendaries were just replaced with other nondescript weapons, along with vendors across factions, Crucible, Vanguard, and others getting refreshed store pages. A good portion of vanilla Destiny weapons just no longer spawned in the wild. They were still plenty usable and upgradable with the Ascendant Energy and Exotic Shards at the time. Before too long, there was another great upsetting with the coming of the King. Destiny's big Year 2 expansion, The Taken King, is still to this day debated as the best state of Destiny even approaching a decade later. Magical time, however, with a terrible price, as a healthy portion of gear and even reaching as far as exotics were made obsolete. There was plenty of weapons added to counter the amount lost, but some were too iconic to replace. The many iconic weapons from the Vault of Glass and Crota's End raids were not only nerfed losing elemental damages, but were also no longer usable in anything current for the time. Not to mention another universe-wide vendor refresh, putting many weapons out of production and making almost everything from Year 1 of Destiny extremely limited edition items. I will be frank, in the April update of The Taken King, it is a bit of a haze, so I know if there was a stock refresh, I wouldn't remember for sure. I just know there was plenty of stuff also added among the list. As a side note too, all of the PlayStation exclusive exotics were added to Xbox and other platforms during The Taken King, which included the exotic Monte Carlo and Hawkmoon from base game, as well as the Fourth Horseman that came out with the Dark Below DLC, but they were also among the weapons not to continue into the new year. When the Siva Crisis came and the Rise of Iron expansion went live, Bungie made good efforts to undo some of the limiters they put on weapons. Gjallarhorn made a grand re-release, and many new weapons emerged from the Plaguelands. But while another vendor refresh with new weapons and armor everywhere occurred, Age of Triumph would return many iconic Year 1 weapons to active service. Refreshed raid drops brought all raid weapons back into the light, with this slight stipulation being that if you wanted elemental damage again, you'd have to do challenge mode raids and earn the exotic version to get the elemental spice. A fair number of classic weapons made returns, as I recall having a Rise of Iron version of the Zombie Apocalypse machine gun that was originally only available in Year 1 Destiny. The PlayStation exclusive exotics had also been updated to power at this time, with the Zen Meteor exotic that released exclusively to PlayStation during The Taken King was further released to all platforms. Post Age of Triumph also saw the iconic Icebreaker exotic sniper return with a dawning. Sadly though, by this time, there wasn't any more updates bringing more legacy weapons back from the dead, so cases like the Pocket Infinity meant it would be among the weapons that were left in the past, never to be made usable again. The Red Legion's assault on the tower and the last city marked the beginning of a whole new journey. Being that Destiny 2 is connected in story only meant practically everything from Destiny 1 was sunset between the locations, raids, and most importantly, the armor and weapons from the last 4 years of Destiny. While you could keep the character you made, that was pretty much all you would get. It was a fresh start for every Guardian, regardless of rookie or veteran status. the only familiar weapons found being Hard Light and Mida Multitool, and about a dozen returning exotic armors between all three classes. This wouldn't continue for long though, as with every expansion, new year, season, and everything in between, there would be returning exotic weapons mixed in with new exotics across the many years ahead. Even some infamous weapons like Icebreaker eventually returned to Destiny even after many of the community believed it would never return given its original powers. Then again, that's far down the line and there is much to discuss. Forsaken was a big change for Destiny 2. Base Destiny was infamous for having every weapon be static drops. Every version of any weapon would be the same no matter how many times it dropped. Forsaken, aka Season of the Outlaw, returned to a random roll drop system. Everything new was a part of this system. However, the change wasn't very retroactive, and even to this day, there are static rolled weapons from year 1 that you can pull out of collections with basic and minimal perks. The new expansion added plenty of weapons to offset the difference between what was left behind and what was just released. However, there was plenty just plain left behind. Nothing big honestly changed when Shadowkeep and the seasonal release pattern came about, except for one prying issue. Between each season of Shadowkeep being, in this case, Season of the Undying, Dawn, Worthy, and Arrivals, the available rewards and activities were only available during each season's time frame. The moment Undying transitioned to Dawn, all of the soul divisive weapons and the weapons from the season pass and the activities that dropped with them were all gone in the blink of an eye, no longer earnable or accessible. This continued for all the seasons in the year of Shadowkeep. While they were still useful in any content you could take it into, once again a whole arsenal becomes very limited edition. But then one of Destiny's most infamous times approached, with the new year that would change that fact. Revealed well before its launch to a very skeptical community, a skeptical wave of sunsetting was coming to Destiny 2 with Beyond Light and the arrival of the darkness in the Soul system. A large portion of the game was being put into what was called the Destiny Content Vault. Entire locations were going to be pulled from the playable space, Io, Titan, Mars, entire patrol zones, along with several activities, even reaching as far as raids, were made no longer playable. All the gear in these locations' activities were in another state of rarity. No longer earnable, but still usable for a short time, as sunsetting was going to keep happening with every new season that came down the line. It was an attempt to lighten the load of Destiny 2 for the developers and to act as a revolving door of weapons to shake up the sandboxes as they came and went. The system, though, didn't even make it a full year, as during Season 14, aka Season of the Splicer, Bungie officially announced that they would no longer put expiration dates on weapons and gear. This was a good move on Bungie's part, but there was a large damage toll already left unrepaired. The locations and activities were still unavailable, and gear reaching as far as Season of Dawn couldn't be saved. Everything before Season 10, aka Season of the Worthy, was officially no longer current and unusable outside of the most basic activities. The Twilight was no longer approaching, but there would be still something taken before too long. While Bungie had made good on the promise of no longer expiring weapons, there was still another limb that had to be removed from the Tree of Destiny. The Tangled Shore was another patrol location that had to be removed from the game space. While there wasn't many gear extinctions that was associated with this location's disappearance, there was still a location and story that was lost. However, with this year's DLC, a pattern was also made known. At this point, the seasonal content model was improved so that you retained access to seasons across a year. It was no longer a lockout as soon as the season ended. There was an issue though, as when a new year came about, all 4 seasons from the past year were all removed. To explain simply, during the year of Witch Queen with the seasons of the Risen, Haunted, Plunder, and Seraph, each season would release one by one, all being available after some time. The player could start during the last season of a year and power through all 4 seasons, not missing a single thing. But if a player was returning on day 1 of a new year, they would have to catch up on all the story from a YouTube video and how they earned the gear. Eventually, Bungie learned how to relocate some seasonal gear before too long, as oftentimes an exotic mission was released with the season, and it would also be a source of seasonal gear, and these exotic missions would stick around after a season ends. Earning the gear is possible, but not nearly in abundance like during the season. After the Lightborn Hive made themselves known, there wasn't any major change in the pattern. 4 seasons in a year, and the next year brought a whole new set of seasons that replaced and faulted the old ones. It so far persisted all the way even through after the final Shape's 3 episodes. In the end, episode was just a different way to say season that had slight gaps in story during release, But by this time of Destiny 2, there was even more restored versions of old Sunset weapons that released alongside a new episode's weapons. Oftentimes, it wasn't all of the weapons from the sets, and some things did stay left behind. Speaking of this, it also applied to the returning raids that made the jump from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2. Season of the Splicer returned the Vault of Glass, Season of the Plunder revived King's Fall, and Season of the Witch resurrected Crota's End. Each raid originally had a weapon to cover all common types of weapons of Destiny 1. Scout, auto, and pulse rifles, hand cannons, shotguns, sniper and fusion rifles, with machine guns and rocket launchers. I know sidearms existed, but Wrath of the Machine was the only raid with sidearms, and the only raid currently not reprised. But I digress. There was a total of 9 weapons for each raid, but only a selection of 6 made the jump. According to Bungie, they chose based on player favorites, but that is very subjective, as every player mourned a weapon left behind with each raid, and there was some irregularities, as Uli's Bane might have been a powerhouse after its rebirth, but I don't remember anyone going as far as saying it was even underrated in its first life. It just was plain not good. Even still, it is highly unlikely Bungie will take a pass and revive the missing weapons, citing concerns of oversaturation in the past. Now we reach the current big issue of weapon tiers and how Bungie is technically sunsetting everything you have come the Edge of Fate. To start, there is a leg up you get just for having new gear equipped flat out. The new artifact provides a set bonus for using new weapons and armor as seen in Mr. Rothwaffle's video, of course credit to his source, just as having a new set of gear with the artifact grants you an additional 7.8% damage reduction in armor, 6% damage bonus to kinetic weaponry, 15% bonus to energy weapons damage, and another 6% bonus for heavy weapons damage. This bonus is also seasonal, so when the next season comes around, if you want to maintain a bonus from the artifact, you'll need another full new set of gear. Then checking with Fallout Plays and his Edge of Fate preview regarding gear, according to the info relayed from Bungie, our power level is being reset. The dial is going back down from the 2000s all the way down to 10, and the new soft cap is going to be 200. But if we wanted to get past that and reach the more rewarding content, guess what? You'd need new gear, because the new gear has seasonal bonus power that could be expanded upon getting better gear from harder activities. All of our previously acquired god rolls and finely tuned armor stat spreads will officially be useless, exception being for a cost. A new type of core will be able to be consumed, allowing old gear to become current until this season expires, which you will need to consume another core to keep it current for every single season going ahead. So in the theoretical world where a player has a 600 out of 600 vault that uses every single item for something specific, that player would need 600 new cores every single season. An outrageous hypothetical, I know, but there are many veterans that fill the vaults that will have to maintain the hard-earned 10 out of 10 god rolls, the crafted weapons that took weeks of raiding to get the 5 out of 5 deep side drops, or just a vault filled with sentimental items that will need to be cleared to make room for a complete new set of gear that Bungie said they needed to get just to keep up with the times. It could be that I'm just jaded when it comes to Destiny and changes, but in the end, I can't see this new tier system as anything but a massive wave of passive-aggressive sunsetting. Coming off changes in the final shape that undid light restrictions on every single piece of gear in the game, it's bewildering to think that the year after they unchained the entire Destiny community and allowed them to use any weapon they wanted, now Bungie has put an in-game price on continuing to use any weapon you want. Officially, I have no idea how much these new consumables will cost, as I am a small-time creator that probably speaks too ill of Bungie to be invited to any closed-door reveals. Regardless, even if it's just a few thousand glimmer per core, there are plenty of people that will burn glimmer for thousands, maybe even millions, to get hundreds of these cores to keep old gear. I'm already not likely to buy the next DLC, but after hearing my favorite weapons will be updatable for a price, it's no wonder people are canceling pre-orders. Officially, this is the end of the video. As always, the comment section is welcome to discussions, questions, and opinions, of course within reason. No need to be an ass on the internet, there's already enough of that out there. If you enjoyed or would like to support my channel, a like and subscribe is always appreciated. My name is the Mad Scorpion, and I will see you in the next video.